Commander Thovas hovered his taloned fingers over the model-sized vessel, admiring its intricate design despite its obvious inferiority. The captured human ship barely filled his palm, a perfect souvenir for his collection. Around him, fellow Jarian officers gathered in the asteroid mining station's observation deck, their massive frames dwarfing the furniture designed for multiple species. Remarkable craftsmanship for such primitive beings. Thovas mused, turning the vessel to catch the light from nearby Nebula Taisha. They build these toys and dare call themselves spacefaring. Officer Dren laughed, his metallic epaulets catching the same nebula light. The humans think these can challenge our dreadnoughts. Perhaps we should place it in a museum of curiosities. The room filled with rumbling laughter as the officers passed the tiny ship between their massive hands. The Jarian Empire had never considered humans worthy adversaries, merely resourceful vermin expanding into territories rightfully belonging to superior civilizations. "I've heard rumors," said Junior Officer Carl, her voice lower than the others, "that these small vessels possess unusual technological capabilities." Thovas waved dismissively. "Propaganda. How could something this small generate enough power to challenge even our scout ships? Our dreadnoughts are each the size of their largest space stations." The comm unit at Thovas's belt crackled suddenly, interrupting their amusement. His expression shifted as he listened, mandibles tightening against his face. "Sir," Dren inquired, noticing the commander's darkening complexion. "Third Fleet Patrol Squadron in Sector 7. Gone," Thovas said, voice hollow. 12 battlecruisers, vanished without distress signals, no debris field. The tiny vessel in his hand suddenly felt heavier, more ominous. "Impossible," someone whispered. Thovas stared at the miniature ship. "Perhaps," he said carefully, "we've been measuring power by the wrong standards." The Jarian Empire stretched across 17 star systems, its boundaries marked by massive orbital fortresses and patrolling dreadnoughts. For 8 centuries, they had expanded steadily, absorbing or subjugating lesser species, bringing the enlightenment of Jarian culture to the galaxy. Their warships were technological marvels, kilometers long, housing tens of thousands of crew members, bristling with planet-crusher cannons capable of rendering worlds uninhabitable in hours. Most species surrendered upon first contact with a Jarian Armada. Those who resisted provided educational examples for others. Halfway across the frontier zone, humanity represented something different. Born from Earth's brutal survival wars, humans had spread cautiously into nearby systems, establishing decentralized colonies and governance. After centuries of fighting each other, they had developed technologies focused on efficiency rather than intimidation. Miniaturization became their specialty when resources grew scarce. While Jarian engineers built ever larger warships, human scientists perfected quantum phase reactors that could fit in a backpack. While Jarian tacticians planned overwhelming force deployments, humans developed adaptive AI systems that could outthink entire command structures. Small, adaptable, and virtually invisible to standard scanners. Human vessels moved like ghosts through the frontier systems. Taisha 9, a modest mining colony on the border between human and Jarian space, exemplified this philosophy. Its inhabitants had hollowed out a small asteroid cluster, creating pocket settlements connected by quantum tunnels. From the outside, it appeared to be nothing but a minor mining operation. Inside, it housed research facilities developing the next generation of phase-shift technology. The Jarians had dismissed these settlements as insignificant, mere annoyances to be dealt with once the Empire finished subduing the Centauri alliance in the southern quadrant. This dismissal was their first mistake. Their second was capturing what they believed to be a simple scout vessel near the relay station Alpha 7. They never questioned why such an insignificant vessel was so easily detected. Commander Amina Reyes watched the holographic display with absolute focus, monitoring the Jarian patrol's movements as they transported the captured vessel code-named Hummingbird, to their station. Her dark eyes reflected the blue light of the tactical display, her expression revealing nothing of the tension building inside her. At 43, she carried herself with the quiet confidence of someone who had witnessed both triumph and devastation. The small scar running along her jawline had faded over the years, but the memories behind it remained sharp. "They've taken the bait," she said, fingers tapping the armrest of her command chair aboard the cloaked vessel. Silent thunder. Right on schedule. Lieutenant Hassan nodded from the tactical station. Jarian arrogance is predictable, if nothing else. Commander. Amina allowed herself a small smile. Arrogance is a tactical advantage when properly exploited. She turned to the communication panel. "Patch me through to Dr. Song." The display shifted, revealing the face of Dr. Kira Song, whose youthful features belied her status as the Federation's leading quantum physicist. Despite being only 34, she had revolutionized phase shift technology, making it viable for vessels smaller than a shuttle. "Commander," Kira acknowledged, pushing aside a strand of black hair that had escaped her utilitarian ponytail. Dark circles under her eyes testified to sleepless nights, perfecting the Hummingbird systems. "The Jarians have moved our package exactly where we need it. The reactor's passive sensors are collecting their shield frequencies and command protocols." "Casualties if we activate now?" Amina asked, her voice neutral but her eyes searching. Kira hesitated. "Depending on the station's current population, between 12 and 1,500 Jarian military personnel. No civilians detected on scanning." Amina nodded, absorbing this without visible reaction. Her nightmares were already crowded with the faces of those she couldn't save during the Proxima Centauri evacuation. What were a few hundred more? "Stand by for my command. We need to wait until Admiral Markaz's flagship arrives. That's our primary target." On the other side of the frontier, aboard the imposing Jarian battle station, Lieutenant Varrock Thal couldn't contain his excitement as he supervised the transportation of the human vessel to the secure laboratory. At 28 standard years, Varrock represented the Empire's brightest young officers, ambitious, brilliant, and utterly convinced of Jarian superiority. "Careful with that," he barked at the handling crew. "It may be primitive, but it's still valuable intelligence." The human ship, barely the size of a Jarian shuttle, looked absurdly small in the cavernous docking bay. Its sleek design contrasted sharply with the angular, intimidating aesthetic of Jarian vessels. Varrock ran a scanner over its hull, frowning at the unusual readings. "Strange," he muttered. "The energy signature is dormant, but complex." Senior Technician Moza glanced over his shoulder. "Perhaps some form of efficient battery system. Humans are known for making necessities from scraps." Varrock nodded, though uncertainty nagged at him. "Schedule a complete disassembly for tomorrow. I want to understand every component before Admiral Markaz arrives for inspection." "The Admiral is coming here?" Moza's voice carried surprise and a hint of fear. Admiral Markaz was legendary within the Empire, a veteran of the Centauri campaign whose brutally effective tactics had earned him both respect and dread. "Yes," Varrock confirmed, his chest swelling with pride. "He's bringing the 7th Fleet to reinforce our blockade around the human mining colonies." He expressed personal interest in this capture. What Varrock didn't mention was how desperately he needed this opportunity. His family's standing had diminished after his father's political missteps. A successful analysis of human technology could restore their honor and advance his career beyond the remote frontier posting. Later that night, alone in his quarters, Varrock studied the preliminary scans of the human vessel. Something about its design principles disturbed him, not because they were primitive, but because they followed a logic he couldn't grasp. Jarian engineering emphasized visible power, massive engines, imposing weapons arrays, kilometer-long hulls that cast shadows over planets. This human craft seemed built around a different philosophy entirely, one where power was concentrated, hidden, efficient. For the first time in his career, Varrock wondered if there was something the Empire didn't understand about their supposedly inferior adversaries. The human mining colony of Taishar 9 appeared unremarkable from space, a cluster of asteroids connected by occasional flashes of transport shuttles. To the Jarian blockade fleet surrounding it, the settlement represented nothing more than a strategic position to be controlled, its resources catalogued for eventual Imperial exploitation. Within the hidden command center deep inside the largest asteroid, Colony Administrator Eliza Kamari received Commander Reyes's encrypted transmission with visible relief. "Your timing is perfect," Eliza said, her weathered face lined with exhaustion. "The Jarians have cut off our supply routes. We have maybe 3 weeks of life support reserves remaining. The blockade ends tomorrow," Amina promised. "Has there been any direct aggression?" "Not yet. They're content to starve us out slowly. More elegant that way." Eliza's bitter tone revealed the cost of the slow siege. "We've lost 11 to oxygen rationing accidents already." Amina's expression hardened. "Inform your people to secure in the deepest shelters tomorrow at 0800 hours. There may be temporary system disruptions when we engage." After the transmission ended, Amina sat motionless, memories of her childhood on Taishar 9 surfacing unbidden. The community gardens where her mother had taught her to cultivate modified earth plants. The observatory dome where she'd first dreamed of joining the Federation fleet. All now threatened by an empire that saw humans as pests to be exterminated at leisure. "Commander." Lieutenant Hassan's voice pulled her back to the present. "Dr. Song requests your presence in engineering." Kira stood surrounded by holographic diagrams when Amina entered. The quantum phase reactor, the heart of their strategy, glowed in rendered detail before her. "I've refined the targeting parameters," Kira explained without preamble. "The Hummingbird will channel the full reactor discharge through the phase shift beam. In theory, it should bypass all known Jarian shielding technologies." "In theory?" Amina questioned. Kira's hands moved through the hologram, adjusting variables. "We've never deployed the technology at this scale. Lab tests suggest the energy discharge will vaporize anything within the primary target zone instantly. But the secondary electromagnetic pulse..." She hesitated. "Speak freely, Doctor." "The EMP could propagate through subspace, potentially affecting systems beyond our intended targets, civilian vessels, colonies with outdated shielding. They might experience critical failures." Amina studied the projections. "Can you contain the effect to military targets only?" "I've implemented buffers, but physics is physics. Commander, actions have consequences beyond our intentions." The weight of command settled more heavily on Amina's shoulders. "How many lives will be lost if we do nothing? If the Jarians continue their expansion unchecked?" "I'm a physicist, not a prophet," Kira answered softly. "But I understand what you're asking. Sometimes the scales of justice require a heavy counterweight." Neither woman spoke for a moment, the quiet hum of the ship's systems filling the silence between them. "Make your final preparations," Amina finally said. "We proceed as planned when Admiral Markaz arrives." Aboard the Jarian battle station, Admiral Markaz's arrival proceeded with characteristic pomp. Standing over 2 meters tall with battle scars visible on his gray-green skin, the Admiral commanded immediate deference. His flagship, the Imperial Dominance, dwarfed even the substantial station, its shadow creating an artificial eclipse. Varrock stood at rigid attention as Markaz inspected the captured human vessel, now displayed in the station's strategic command center. "This is what has intelligence so concerned?" Markaz scoffed, his deep voice resonating through the chamber. "I expected something more, consequential. The technology inside suggests capabilities beyond what we've attributed to humans previously." "Admiral," Varrock ventured. Markaz fixed him with a penetrating stare. "You find this toy impressive, Lieutenant?" Varrock hesitated. sensing the potential career-ending implications of his answer. "I find it puzzling, sir. Its power generation systems appear disproportionate to its size." "Puzzling," Marquez repeated, making the word sound like an accusation. "The Empire isn't built on puzzles, Lieutenant. It's built on certainty, on overwhelming force." "Of course, Admiral." Marquez circled the display pedestal. "Tomorrow, we'll demonstrate that certainty to the mining colony. I've ordered the fleet to prepare for planetary bombardment. These humans need to understand the consequences of encroaching on Imperial territory." Varrock couldn't hide his surprise. The blockade was meant to force surrender, not what, Lieutenant? Marquez's voice dropped dangerously. "Not destroy a nest of vermin. Perhaps you've spent too long on this frontier station. You've forgotten the Empire's purpose." "No, Admiral. I understand." "Good. Now, show me how this human toy performs against our systems. Consider it an educational exercise before tomorrow's real demonstration of power." Varrock activated the simulation protocols, setting the captured vessel against a rendered Jarian destroyer. The computer calculated outcomes based on observed human capabilities. "As you can see, Admiral, even with generous parameters, the human vessel is neutralized within seconds," Varrock explained as the simulation played out. "Our energy weapons overwhelm its shields before it can close to effective firing range." Marquez nodded with satisfaction. "As expected, prepare a full technical breakdown by morning. I want to understand their technological direction before we eliminate this colony." After the Admiral departed, Varrock remained in the command center, running the simulation again with modified parameters. Something still bothered him about the human ship. Why would they deploy a vessel so hopelessly outmatched? He adjusted the input values, giving the human craft higher energy output levels based on the unusual reactor signature he'd detected. The simulation results shifted dramatically. Varrock stared at the projection, then ran it again, and again, each time with the same disturbing outcome. If the dormant energy readings represented actual output capability, the tiny human vessel could theoretically penetrate Jarian shields. Not just penetrate, overwhelm them completely. Surely that was impossible. The Empire's military dominance was an established fact, not a theory to be questioned. Varrock deleted the simulation results, attributing his concerns to exhaustion and the pressure of the Admiral's inspection. Yet as he left the command center, doubt had taken root in his mind. Hidden behind the Taishar system's outer planet, the Silent Thunder maintained its stealth position on the bridge. Tension had built to nearly unbearable levels as the crew monitored the massive Jarian fleet assemblage. 63 warships, Lieutenant Hassan reported, including the Imperial Dominance. They're arranging in bombardment formation. Amina studied the tactical display. "They're not wasting time. Are we receiving telemetry from the Hummingbird?" "Clear signal, Commander. Dr. Song confirms the reactor is fully charged and synchronized with their command network." Amina opened a ship-wide channel. "All personnel secure for combat operations. This is not a drill." She turned to communications. "Patch me through to Dr. Song one last time." Kira's face appeared on screen, her normally composed features tense with concentration. "Reactor is stable. Commander, phase shift targeting aligned with the Imperial Dominance's bridge section. Awaiting your command." "Any second thoughts, Doctor?" Amina asked quietly. A flicker of emotion crossed Kira's face. "Many, but none that outweigh the necessity." Amina nodded, understanding completely. "On my mark, then." On the tactical display, the Jarian fleet had completed its formation, targeting systems on multiple dreadnoughts oriented toward Taishar 9. "They're powering weapons," Hassan reported. Amina took a deep breath. The moment crystallized around her. Everything she'd worked toward, every sacrifice made, every compromise of conscience accepted for this single point in time. "Execute," Within the Jarian command center, the captured human vessel sat innocuously on its display pedestal. Admiral Markaz stood before a massive viewport, watching his fleet arrange itself with practiced precision. Lieutenant Varrock monitored the coordination from a nearby console, still troubled by his simulations but committed to his duty. Without warning or preamble, the small human vessel began to hum. The sound rose quickly, drawing alarmed glances from the command staff. "What's happening?" Markaz demanded, turning from the viewport. Before Varrock could respond, a blinding light erupted from the vessel, not an explosion, but something far more precise. A beam of energy, impossibly concentrated, lanced from the tiny craft directly through the command center's ceiling. There was no heat, no concussive force, just light that seemed to phase through solid matter. The beam continued upward, penetrating the station's superstructure, traveling through vacuum, and striking the Imperial dominance precisely where its bridge should be. For one heartbeat, nothing happened. Then, the massive Jarian flagship, pride of the Empire, 14 kilometers of advanced weaponry and impenetrable armor, simply ceased to exist, not exploded, not broken apart, but transformed instantly into constituent particles dispersed across space. Where a mountain-sized warship had loomed, only stars remained visible. Alarms screamed throughout the station. Officers frozen in shock stared at empty space where their admiral and flagship had been moments before. Varrock alone moved, diving toward the control console to initiate emergency protocols. Across the Jarian fleet, the effect cascaded outward. Ships nearest to the vanished flagship suffered catastrophic system failures as the electromagnetic pulse washed over them. Navigation systems went dark. Weapons platforms reset to neutral positions. Communication arrays fell silent. In the span of 30 seconds, the most powerful Jarian battle group ever assembled in the frontier zone had been effectively neutralized. And the small human vessel on its pedestal continued to hum, its work apparently incomplete. "Direct hit confirmed," Lieutenant Hassan reported, his voice steady despite the unprecedented event they'd just witnessed. "The Imperial dominance has been completely vaporized. 84% of the Jarian fleet is experiencing critical systems failure." The bridge crew of the Silent Thunder sat in stunned silence, watching the tactical display as one of the most powerful warships ever built disappeared without trace. Even Amina, who had planned this moment, found herself momentarily speechless. "Casualties?" she finally asked. "Approximately 9,000 aboard the flagship. No life signs detected in the immediate vaporization zone." Hassan paused. "The station remains structurally intact, though suffering severe power fluctuations." Amina turned to the communications station. "Get me Dr. Song." Kira's face appeared on screen, her expression a complex mixture of horror and scientific fascination. "It worked beyond projections," she said without preamble. The phase shift created a perfect molecular disassociation field. There was no resistance. The remaining fleet, EMP effects as expected. Their systems will recover eventually, but we have a window of approximately 4 hours before they can coordinate effectively. Amina nodded. "Begin Stage 2 targeting calculations. We'll disable their weapon systems next." Kira's hands hesitated over her controls. "Commander, the casualty count on that flagship was unavoidable," Amina said firmly. "Would you prefer we wait until they bombard Taishar 9, until they kill everyone in that colony? My family lived there. Doctor, I still have friends there." "There's a difference between defense and annihilation," Kira countered. "We've proven our capability. Perhaps now we open communications? Offer terms?" Before Amina could respond, Lieutenant Hassan interrupted. "Commander, we're receiving a transmission from the Jarian station. It's requesting a direct channel to you specifically." Amina raised an eyebrow. "Put it through." The screen split, revealing Lieutenant Varrock Thal's face alongside Kira's. His normally composed Jarian features showed clear signs of shock, but he spoke with remarkable control. "Commander Reyes, I am Lieutenant Varrock Thal, acting commander of Jarian Outpost Delta 9. How did you know who to contact, Lieutenant?" Amina asked. "I ran simulations last night. I suspected your vessel had capabilities beyond our understanding." He swallowed visibly. "I didn't expect this. What do you want, Lieutenant?" "To prevent further bloodshed." Varrock's eyes darted off-screen, suggesting he wasn't alone. "The remaining fleet commanders are preparing countermeasures. They believe the flagship's destruction was a malfunction, not an attack." "And what do you believe?" "That I just witnessed the end of everything I thought I understood about warfare." Varrock leaned closer to the camera. "You could have destroyed our entire fleet. You chose one target. Why?" Amina studied him carefully. "We're not interested in slaughter, Lieutenant. Only in establishing that humanity cannot be dismissed or subjugated. The Empire doesn't negotiate with... The Empire just lost its most powerful warship without a fight." Amina interrupted. "Perhaps it's time to reconsider that policy." Varrock was silent for a moment. "What are your terms?" "The immediate lifting of the blockade around Taisha 9 and all human settlements, recognition of human territorial claims in the frontier zone, and a formal apology for the 11 civilians who died due to your siege tactics." "That's..." Varrock stopped himself. "I don't have the authority to agree to those terms." "Then find someone who does. You have 1 hour before we target the next vessel in your fleet." Amina paused. "And Lieutenant, I suggest you evacuate non-essential personnel from those ships." After the transmission ended, Kira stared at Amina. "You wouldn't really?" "They don't need to know that," Amina replied quietly. "Fear of what we could do will accomplish more than actually doing it." On the Jarian station, Varrock faced the remaining command staff, who looked to him with a mixture of confusion and desperation. "The flagship is gone," he stated bluntly. "Admiral Markaz is dead. The humans have demonstrated weapon technology that renders our defenses meaningless." Senior Commander Bezrock shook his massive head. "Impossible. One lucky strike doesn't..." "It wasn't luck," Varrock interrupted, bringing up the sensor recordings. "Their weapon phase shifted through our shields as if they didn't exist. They targeted the flagship specifically, with surgical precision." "We should launch all remaining weapons," another officer suggested. "Saturate their position with..." "With what?" Varrock demanded. "Half our fleet can't even maintain life support right now. And we don't know where their control ship is located." He straightened his uniform. "We need to negotiate, now, before more lives are lost." "Negotiate? With humans?" Bezrock spat the word. "The Empire doesn't..." "The Empire just lost its most advanced warship in the blink of an eye," Varrock said, echoing Amina's words. "We need to reassess everything we thought we knew." As the debate raged around him, Varrock made his decision. The Empire had taught him that strength determined right, that the powerful dictated terms to the weak. By that logic, the humans had just earned the right to be heard. He opened a secure channel to the Imperial High Command, requesting emergency diplomatic authorization. To his surprise, the response was immediate. "Survive. Secure information on human weapon capabilities. Full negotiating authority granted." The Empire, it seemed, could be pragmatic when facing extinction. As dawn broke over Taisha 9 the following day, residents emerged cautiously from their shelters to an unexpected sight. The Jarian blockade ships were retreating, forming an orderly procession toward the system's edge. In the colony's administration center, Eliza Kamari watched the tactical display with a mixture of disbelief and cautious hope. "They're actually leaving." Commander Amina Reyes nodded, fatigue evident in the shadows beneath her eyes after 36 hours of tense negotiation. Lieutenant Tal proved surprisingly reasonable once the power dynamics shifted. "I never thought I'd see a Jarian officer use the word sorry," Eliza remarked. "He's young, adaptable." Amina watched the retreating fleet. The older commanders were harder to convince, but Tal managed them well. Dr. Kira Song entered the chamber, carrying data tablets. "The Hummingbird's reactor is fully secure. We've transferred it to the research facility for complete deactivation." "Deactivation?" Eliza questioned, "after what it accomplished?" "Especially after what it accomplished," Kira said firmly. "This technology needs careful ethical consideration before deployment decisions are made." Amina nodded in agreement. "The weapon served its purpose. We've established deterrence. What matters now is building something sustainable from this moment." Outside the administration center, the colony stirred with renewed activity. Supply ships, held at bay for weeks by the blockade, began landing procedures. Families reunited. The hydroponic gardens, which had been operating at minimal levels to conserve power, were restored to full capacity. For the first time in months, Taisha 9 breathed freely. That evening, Amina walked through the colony's central plaza, the same plaza where she had played as a child. Memorial markers honored the 11 who hadn't survived the blockade. She knelt beside them, placing her hand on the cool stone. "We made them see us," she whispered. "Not as pests to be exterminated, not as primitives to be dismissed, but as equals to be respected." A small child approached, holding a toy model of the Hummingbird vessel. "Are you the commander?" the girl asked, eyes wide with curiosity. "The one who made the bad ships go away?" Amina smiled gently. "I had help. Many people working together. My dad says your ship was magic," the child continued, holding up her toy. "That it made a whole big ship disappear." "Not magic," Amina corrected softly. "Just science that looks like magic when you don't understand it." The child considered this seriously. "Will the bad ships come back?" Amina glanced toward the stars, visible through the plaza's transparent dome. "They might, but they'll come talking next time, not fighting. Because they're afraid of us now." The question gave Amina pause. Fear as a foundation for peace was precarious at best, catastrophic at worst. "No," she finally said, "because they respect us now. There's a difference." Across the system, aboard the retreating Jarian command vessel, Lieutenant Varrock Thal faced a communication screen displaying the stern faces of the Imperial High Command. "You negotiated surrender terms with humans?" Grand Marshal Zex demanded, his elaborate uniform barely containing his massive frame. "I negotiated a cessation of hostilities following the loss of our flagship and the Admiral," Varrock corrected carefully. "The alternative was the potential destruction of the entire fleet." "Based on a single weapons demonstration?" another counselor questioned. "A demonstration that vaporized our most advanced warship without warning or apparent effort," Varrock countered. "The humans could have destroyed us entirely. They chose restraint." The council chamber fell silent as the implications settled over them. Finally, the Grand Marshal spoke again. "Your preliminary report suggests their technology operates on principles our scientists don't fully comprehend." "Correct, sir. Their quantum phase technology allows energy projection that ignores conventional shields entirely." Varrock hesitated before adding, "Perhaps there are avenues other than military confrontation worth exploring with them." "You sound like you admire these humans, Lieutenant," the Marshal observed coldly. "I admire efficiency, sir, and adaptability. Traits the Empire itself was founded upon." Varrock stood straighter. "The humans achieved with one small vessel what would have taken us an entire battle group. There's wisdom in learning from that, not dismissing it." After a long silence, the Grand Marshal nodded slowly. "You will remain as liaison to the human territories. Learn everything you can about their technology and culture. The Empire will reassess its expansion priorities in that sector. And the treaty terms I negotiated? Will be honored, the Marshal said, though his expression suggested the decision pained him. For now, after the transmission ended, Varrock stood alone on the observation deck, watching the stars. Everything he had been taught about the natural order, about the rightful dominance of the Jarian Empire, had been upended in a single blinding moment. He found himself thinking about Commander Reyes, about the precision of her strategy. She had destroyed exactly one ship, not in rage or for revenge, but as the minimum demonstration necessary to force a reassessment. There was honor in that approach, a concept his people claimed to value, but often abandoned in favor of overwhelming force. Perhaps there was more to learn from these humans than technology alone. 3 months later, a historic meeting convened on neutral territory, Space Station Harmony, constructed hastily at the boundary between human and Jarian space. Representatives from both civilizations gathered in the central chamber, surrounded by security teams and diplomatic staff. Amina, now promoted to Commodore following the Taisha incident, represented the Human Federation alongside a delegation of colonial administrators and scientists. Dr. Kira Song stood among them, her research team's findings on non-weaponized applications of phase shift technology forming the centerpiece of the human proposals. The Jarian delegation entered with characteristic formality, their massive frames making the spacious chamber seem suddenly crowded. To Amina's surprise, Varrock Tal led the group, now wearing the insignia of a full commander. "Commodore Reyes," he greeted her with a formal bow. "We meet under better circumstances." "Commander Tal." She returned the gesture. "A well-deserved promotion." "I see. As is yours." A hint of what might have been humor crossed his alien features. "Though I suspect neither of us expected to become diplomats." The formal proceedings began with the signing of the Taisha Accords, a non-aggression pact establishing clear boundaries between human and Jarian territories, with provisions for cultural exchange and scientific collaboration. During a recess, Amina found herself standing beside Varrock at the station's viewport, both watching the stars in contemplative silence. "Your people move quickly," Varrock finally observed. "This station didn't exist 3 months ago." "Necessity drives innovation," Amina replied. "When you're small, you learn to adapt rapidly. A lesson my people are beginning to appreciate." Varrock turned to face her. "The Empire has existed for 8 centuries, believing size and visible power were the only metrics that mattered. The Hummingbird incident has challenged that perspective. For the better, I hope. Time will tell." Varrock gestured toward where Kira was explaining something to a group of fascinated Jarian scientists. "Your Dr. Song has proposed some remarkable applications for your phase shift technology." "Peaceful applications," Amina emphasized. "Energy transmission, medical treatments, faster-than-light communications. The same technology that vaporized our flagship." "Technology is neutral. Commander, its application defines its morality." Varrock considered this. A Jarian philosopher once wrote that power without wisdom is the path to extinction. I never fully understood that until recently. As the conference resumed, delegates from both sides presented initiatives for collaborative research, trade agreements, and cultural exchange programs. The tension that had dominated initial interactions gradually eased as common interests emerged. Late that evening, Kira found Amina in her quarters, reviewing the day's proceedings. "It's going better than expected," Kira noted. "Don't get too comfortable," Amina cautioned. The Imperial High Command agreed to these talks out of pragmatism, not conviction. If they ever believe they've developed countermeasures to our technology, then we'd better ensure the relationship develops beyond mere deterrence," Kira concluded. "The joint research initiatives are a start. Their scientists are brilliant, just constrained by cultural rigidity." "Speaking of research," Amina set aside her tablet. How are the modifications to the colony's defense systems progressing? Kira's expression tightened. You mean the miniaturized phase shift projectors? They're operational, but I still question the wisdom of creating more weapons when we're supposedly pursuing peace. Peace requires preparation for its opposite, Amina said gently. The Jarians respect strength. If we appear vulnerable, the peace won't last. There's a difference between defense and creating an arsenal that could destroy civilizations, Kira argued. The power we've unlocked, it needs governance, ethical constraints, and it will have them, Amina promised. But first, we need to ensure our survival isn't dependent on Jarian goodwill alone. Their debate was interrupted by a communication alert. Lieutenant Hassan's face appeared on the screen. Commodore, Commander Tal is requesting an urgent private meeting. Varrock arrived minutes later, his normally composed demeanor visibly disturbed. Without preamble, he placed a data crystal on the table between them. What is this? Amina asked. Intelligence reports from the Imperial Strategic Command, Varrock said quietly. Classified at the highest levels. Plans for a comprehensive campaign against what they call technologically presumptuous species, including yours. Amina's expression remained neutral, but her body tensed. Why are you showing me this? Because these plans were formulated before the hummingbird incident, yet they remain active. Varrock met her gaze directly. While we negotiate here, elements within the Empire prepare for eventual conquest, once they believe they've developed effective countermeasures to your technology. Why betray your people's confidence? Kira asked, studying him intently. Varrock considered the question carefully. I was raised to believe the Empire's expansion was its sacred duty, bringing order to a chaotic galaxy. The hummingbird incident forced me to question that assumption. If we're so easily blinded by arrogance, what else might we be wrong about? You're risking everything by sharing this, Amina observed. Yes. The admission was simple but profound. But I've seen enough to know that the old ways, conquest, subjugation, the belief that might makes right, lead nowhere but to more destruction. Eventually, someone develops a bigger weapon. The cycle continues. Amina picked up the data crystal, weighing it thoughtfully. What do you propose we do with this information? Use it. Not to escalate conflict, but to demonstrate that transparency builds stronger foundations than secrecy. Varrock straightened his uniform. I've requested asylum with the Human Federation. My career in the Empire is finished regardless. The request hung in the air between them, unexpected, unprecedented. You understand what you're asking? Amina said carefully. You'd be the first Jarian to formally defect. I prefer to think of it as being the first to recognize a new reality. Varrock replied. One where cooperation offers greater benefits than conquest. Later that night, after securing the intelligence and granting Varrock temporary protected status, Amina stood alone on the station's observation deck. The stars looked different here at the boundary between two civilizations, not just points of light, but potential bridges between worlds. The hummingbird's devastating demonstration had created an opening, but what followed would determine whether that opening led to lasting peace or merely a temporary reprieve from inevitable conflict. She thought of the child on Taishar 9 with her toy spacecraft, of Dr. Song's ethical concerns, of Varrock's courageous choice to seek a different path. Power came in many forms, not just the ability to destroy, but the wisdom to know when not to. As humanity stepped into a larger galaxy, that distinction would prove more important than any weapon they might develop. 1 year later, the mining colony of Taishan 9 had transformed. Once a hidden outpost constantly fearing discovery, it now served as a hub for human-Jarian cooperation. Joint research facilities dominated the expanded settlement, with scientists from both species working side by side on applications of phase shift technology. Amina, now Admiral Reyes, following her promotion to head of frontier defense, walked through the central plaza with Eliza Kamari, observing the changes with satisfaction. "I never thought I'd see Jarians and humans sharing meals together," Eliza remarked, nodding toward a cafeteria where the massive aliens sat alongside their human colleagues, awkwardly attempting to use human utensils. "Cultural exchange is proceeding faster than diplomatic relations," Amina agreed. "Scientists speak a common language, regardless of species." They passed a research laboratory where Dr. Kira Song supervised a team developing medical applications for phase shift technology. Through the transparent walls, they could see her demonstrating a device that allowed surgical interventions without breaking the skin, phasing instruments directly into the body to repair damage. "Her work is revolutionary," Eliza noted. "Hospitals throughout the Federation are clamoring for the technology, and she's sharing it freely with the Jarians," Amina added, "building goodwill through mutual benefit rather than fear." Not far away, a different facility housed more sensitive research, defensive applications of the same technology, conducted under stricter security protocols. Balance required preparation for all possibilities. In the colony's diplomatic wing, Varrock Tal, now officially recognized as the first Jarian Federation citizen, conducted a briefing for newly arrived imperial dignitaries. His unique position as cultural translator had proven invaluable during the transition period. "The Harmony Accords have held for 12 months without incident," he explained to the delegation. "Trade volume between our civilizations has increased 400%. Cultural exchange programs have begun on 17 worlds." An older Jarian official, General Kravak, known for his hardline views, scoffed visibly. "And what of military readiness? Has the Empire grown soft while I was assigned to the Centauri front?" "The Empire has grown wiser," Varrock countered calmly, recognizing that not every civilization need be an adversary, that strength comes in many forms. "Pretty words from a defector," Kravak rumbled. "I prefer pioneer," Varrock replied without rancor. "Someone must be first to walk a new path." After the briefing, Varrock joined Amina and Eliza in the administration center for a private update. "General Kravak's presence concerns me," Varrock admitted. "He represents a faction within the imperial military that views our cooperation as temporary, a strategic pause while they develop countermeasures." "Are they succeeding?" Amina asked directly. "Their scientists have developed theoretical shields against phase-shift weapons," Varrock confirmed. "But they're bulky, energy-intensive, and untested. More importantly, they're missing the point entirely." "Which is?" Eliza inquired. "That conflict isn't inevitable. That different species can benefit more from exchange than conquest." Varrock gestured toward the plaza beyond the windows, where humans and Jarians moved about their daily business. "This is what they don't understand yet, that this cooperation isn't weakness, but a different kind of strength." That evening, a celebration marked the anniversary of the Harmony Accords. The station's grand hall filled with representatives from both civilizations, music from both cultures alternating through the sound system. Dr. Kira Song found Amina watching the proceedings from a quiet corner. "Quite the transformation from last year," Kira observed. "Indeed." Amina sipped her drink thoughtfully. "Your medical applications have done more for diplomacy than any formal treaty." "Technology should heal, not just destroy," Kira said with quiet satisfaction. "Though I notice the defensive research continues apace. A necessary precaution. The Jarian military hardliners haven't all embraced this new reality." Kira nodded towards where Varrock conversed with a group of mixed human and Jarian officials. "He's been invaluable in this transition. He took an enormous risk," Amina acknowledged. "Turned his back on everything he knew because he glimpsed a better possibility. Sometimes it takes a single individual to break an established pattern." Kira mused. One person willing to question what everyone else accepts as inevitable. Across the room, a small commotion drew their attention. A Jarian child, one of the first permitted to visit human space, had become separated from its parents and stood frozen in uncertainty. A human girl, perhaps 7 years old, approached without fear and extended her hand in greeting. After a moment's hesitation, the Jarian child took it, their disparate sizes making the gesture appear almost comical. "The future," Amina said softly, "right there." In the years that followed, the relationship between humans and Jarians evolved in ways neither civilization had imagined possible. Trade routes multiplied, cultural exchanges flourished, joint scientific endeavors yielded breakthroughs benefiting both species. The hummingbird incident became a historical footnote, the moment when humanity demonstrated it could not be dismissed, but also chose restraint over domination. The vessel itself was preserved in a museum on Taisha 9, a reminder that sometimes the smallest objects could create the most profound changes. And occasionally, visitors to that museum might spot Admiral Amina Reyes standing quietly before the display, remembering the moment when a single choice, to demonstrate power without unleashing it fully, altered the course of 2 civilizations. Beside the display, a simple plaque bore words attributed to both a human philosopher and a Jarian sage. Bridging cultures separated by light years and biology, but united in wisdom. In a universe where absolute power can be wielded in an instant, the true measure of advancement is not whether we choose to dominate, but whether we choose to understand.